You know who he is, the version of you that avoids the hard things, that snoozes when he should rise, that scrolls when he should study. You've met him, lived beside him, sometimes even become him. And now, whether you admit it or not, he's been in control more times than you care to count. But that ends today. This isn't just a YouTube video. This is a confrontation between the man you could be and the version of you you're still tolerating, the weak you. He thrives in softness, lives for the easy route, whispers excuses dressed as logic. He's clever, manipulative, seductive, and every time you choose what's comfortable over what's right, you feed him, you train him, like a stray dog you accidentally adopted. He grows in the shadows of your inaction. But Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations so you could scroll quotes on Instagram and feel inspired for 15 seconds. He wrote them for war. Not war against others, but war against the untrained self, the undisciplined impulse, the inner coward who would rather avoid life than shape it. The question isn't, why am I still stuck? The question is, why haven't you declared war? And if you feel that little flicker in your chest right now, that burn behind your eyes, it's because you know you've let too many days slip through your hands, and you're not angry at the world. You're angry at the part of you that allowed it. But here's the Stoic truth. You don't destroy the weak you with rage. You destroy him with clarity, with action, with presence, with the calm, relentless discipline of a man who no longer negotiates with mediocrity. And that begins today. But before we dive into how, before I walk you through what Marcus would do, before I hand you the tools to dismantle the weaker self one habit at a time, let me ask you one thing. If you've ever found value in this channel, if you want more reminders like this, not fluff, not hype, but philosophical fire that sharpens your soul, then subscribe now. Because what you're about to hear isn't entertainment. It's fuel for the war you've been delaying. Let's begin. No one saw it. The moment you gave in again, it looked innocent. A little more rest, a skipped workout, a just this once indulgence. But deep down, you felt it. That slight erosion of your edge, that quiet betrayal of the man you promised yourself you'd become. You didn't fall because the world was too heavy. You fell because you stopped resisting the pull of your lower self. And the most dangerous part? The world applauds it. Be kind to yourself, they say. Take a break. They whisper, but Marcus wouldn't call that kindness. He'd call it corruption. Stoicism isn't a philosophy for soft living. It's a code for warriors, not of violence, but of character. In Meditations, he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Read that again. Not power over the economy, not your circumstances, not the people who don't text back, but over your mind, your choices, your responses, your daily discipline. You know what that means? It means the weak version of you isn't something life created. It's something you allowed, fed through your habits, nurtured through your rationalizations, protected through your comfort zones. But now you see it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it, because the man who watches himself decline and does nothing is already lost. This is the part where most people check out. They nod, feel inspired, then scroll away, back to the noise, back to their digital distractions and dopamine loops. But you're not most people, are you? If you're still here, if you're still listening, it's because something in you is stirring. Maybe it's guilt, maybe it's anger, maybe it's the realization that you're done living as a diluted version of your potential. Good, because what comes next is not comfort, it's clarity. And with clarity comes power. The power to step into your mornings like a soldier, to shut the door on your excuses, and to build routines so sharp, the weak you bleeds on contact. Right now, I want you to sit in the discomfort, not escape it, not distract yourself. Just sit, because that burn you feel, that's the old you realizing his time is almost up. Every morning is a battleground, but the war is won or lost the night before. While the world scrolls itself to sleep, you're either sharpening your blade or dulling it with mindless noise. The weak version of you? He's always looking for an escape hatch. Just one more episode, just 5 more minutes. But Marcus Aurelius wasn't tucking himself in with distractions. He was writing, reflecting, preparing his mind like a soldier sharpens his sword. He knew something most people forget. Victory is not in the action, it's in the preparation. Don't waste time arguing what a good man should be, he said. Be one. And being one means training your mind before the battle. Your habits after sunset? They whisper the truth about your identity. Do you use the night to numb? Or do you use it to build? If you want to destroy the weaker you have to stop giving him breathing space. You have to make your routines so tight, so intentional, that he suffocates in discipline. This isn't about perfection, it's about preparation. The question isn't how motivated are you? It's how fortified is your environment? Do your evenings lead to chaos or clarity? And listen, if you're the kind of person who's tired of surface-level advice, if you want more videos like this that cut deeper, that challenge you, then you'll want to subscribe, not for me, but for the future you. Who'll look back and be grateful you did. All right, let's go deeper. Because the destruction of your weaker self, it's not a one-time event. It's a ritual, a daily death and rebirth, and you've just lit the fire. If you don't consciously kill the weaker version of yourself, he will quietly survive, feeding off your comfort, thriving in your excuses, and showing up at the worst possible moments, when you're tired, uncertain, or afraid. So Marcus Aurelius practiced a kind of inner assassination, a deliberate, daily separation from the self that clings to fear, pride, and pleasure. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's not just philosophy, that's a call to spiritual war. You must become skilled at identifying the voices in your head, which one seeks truth, and which one seeks escape. The identity collapse ritual begins here. You sit with yourself. No noise, no pretense, no social mask, and you ask, who am I when no one is watching? What part of me still craves validation? Still fears rejection? Still runs from challenge? These are the ghosts you must burn, because until you do, you will always play small. You will always delay your transformation by clinging to the familiar suffering of who you used to be. Don't let comfort dress up as self-care. Don't let passivity disguise itself as patience. Don't let the old you wear the armor of wisdom. He's still weak, just quieter now. Routines alone won't save you. Journaling alone won't transform you. You need a spiritual reckoning, a decision to say, I will not carry this version of myself into tomorrow. Burn the costume, mourn the coward, and rise as someone new. This is not drama. This is discipline. The most stoic thing you can do is kill what's false. Every single morning, without fail, before the sun rose over Rome, before the empire asked anything of him, Marcus Aurelius asked something of himself. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being. This wasn't poetic. It was war preparation, an internal briefing before the battle of the day, because Marcus knew the real war wasn't out there, not the Senate, not the barbarians, not even death. The war was within, and he had to face it before the world got to him. That's where we fail. We reach for our phones before we reach for our thoughts. We check the world before checking in with ourselves, and by the time we've started our day, we've already lost it. But Marcus had a different rhythm. Every morning, he practiced premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evil. He imagined insults, chaos, betrayal, pain, not to feel fear, but to create inner immunity. He'd say, today I will meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest. Not out of cynicism, but to remind himself, his peace was his responsibility, not anyone else's. This is the daily confrontation, not with the world, but with your softness, your expectations, your self-deception. Ask yourself every morning, what do I expect today to give me? What will I give it instead? What pain will I welcome if it leads to growth? This is how warriors are made, not in gyms, but in the silence before dawn, where no one's watching and no praise will come. This is your mirror, your mental shield, and your rejection of victimhood. Because the weak version of you expects ease, but the disciplined version of you, he expects hardship and prepares to win anyway. Imagine losing what you love, your health, your possessions, the people you can't live without, not because you're morbid, but because you're mortal. Marcus wrote, You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This wasn't pessimism. It was freedom. Because when you've already accepted the worst, nothing can shake you. You stop clinging, you stop panicking, you become unshakable. The Stoic doesn't suppress emotion, he disarms it. By walking into the dark rooms of his mind, turning on the lights, and saying, I've already seen this. I'm not afraid anymore. And hey, if you're the kind of person who resonates with this, who's tired of shallow motivation and wants real, inner strength, then hit that subscribe button. This channel is built for minds like yours, the ones who crave silence, structure, and serious self-mastery. We're building warriors here. Now back to Marcus, because in this practice of loss, he discovered the ultimate power move: gratitude without attachment, love without clinging, discipline without fear. You've already lost it all in your mind. Now you're free to live with depth, purpose, and presence. Control your emotions. But the Stoic doesn't just control, he transcends. Marcus Aurelius didn't seek to become a machine. He sought to become a master of internal storms, able to stand still while the world collapsed, not because he didn't feel, but because he felt without drowning. There's a difference between suppression and sovereignty. Suppression is silence out of fear. Sovereignty is silence out of strength. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You'll never fully eliminate emotion. You're not supposed to. Anger can be a teacher, fear can be a signal, sadness can open your soul. But the key is this: you don't let emotion become your master. You feel the wave, you name it, you think it, and then you let it go." The modern man tries to stay positive. The Stoic tries to stay anchored, because not all negative emotions are enemies, and not all positive ones are allies. You don't need to run from what you feel, you just need to rise above it, like an eagle that flies through the storm, not around it. This is why you can be calm while chaos brews, why you can smile in traffic, breathe slowly during betrayal, and still act with dignity when disrespected. Emotions are data, not directives. You can listen without obeying, observe without reacting, and act without being enslaved. That's power. That's presence. That's the kind of man who walks into a room and doesn't have to say a word, because his peace does the talking. People think Stoicism is about being hard on others, hard on life, hard on yourself. But Marcus knew better. He was strict. Yes, disciplined, of course, but also merciful, especially with his own soul. He wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." That's not the voice of a man beating himself up for yesterday. That's a man who learned to begin again, without dragging the weight of guilt, without shaming himself into paralysis. See, here's what you haven't been told. Self-forgiveness isn't weakness. It's what gives you the strength to keep growing. When you stumble, you don't spiral. You study. You don't sink. You stand. You say, "This was me yesterday, but I refuse to be stuck there today." And then you act again, better, cleaner, clearer. This is the way of the Stoic. Not perfection, but progress through self-honesty. He doesn't pretend he never fails. He just refuses to stay the same. He writes down his flaws. He questions his anger. He observes his envy, not to shame himself, but to understand where the rot begins, so he can cut it out without cutting himself down. In today's world, you're told, hustle harder, push through, don't feel sorry for yourself. But Marcus shows you a third way, a way of strength and softness, power and patience, fire and forgiveness, because the man who can forgive himself can't be broken by others. And as you walk this path, don't forget, you're not meant to be flawless. You're meant to be free, and forgiveness is what unlocks that freedom. You've been lied to, told that success is loud, that you must chase applause, that if people don't see you win, you haven't really won. But Marcus Aurelius lived a different truth. He ruled an empire, and yet, he wrote as if no one was watching, because most of the time, no one was. It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. This line, it's a knife through modern anxiety, a call to detach, to rebel, not with rage, but with quiet refusal to be driven by likes, retweets, fame, or fear of judgment. Marcus knew, a man is most powerful when he doesn't need to be seen, when he acts not for approval, but from alignment, when his inner scorecard weighs more than the crowd's noise. And this kind of power, it scares people, because when you stop needing them, you become untouchable. You start doing things because they're right, not because they're popular. You say no without guilt. You walk away without drama. You stop chasing attention because your attention is finally yours. This detachment isn't apathy. It's clarity. It's choosing what matters and letting go of the rest. Marcus didn't just write this for himself. He wrote it for you. The man or woman burning out under the weight of expectations, trying to be everything to everyone, forgetting who you actually are. So pause. Ask yourself, if no one could see what you did today, would you still do it? If the answer is yes, then you're living like a Stoic. If not, you're still wearing chains. So many men think power is domination. They chase control, conquest, reputation, but the Stoics knew better, especially Marcus. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This wasn't just about obstacles, it was about identity. The weakness you want to destroy? It's not an enemy outside. It's a habit, a reflex, a shadow you feed every time you procrastinate, every time you scroll instead of act, every time you let comfort win over commitment. But here's the secret. You don't kill the weak version of you by attacking him. You starve him. You stop arguing, stop negotiating, stop making space for his excuses. You live in a way that makes his survival impossible, and you do it in silence, not by posting about your grind, not by yelling about your goals, but by waking up and doing the work again and again, until your weak self no longer recognizes the man in the mirror. This is how Marcus lived. Despite being emperor, despite being surrounded by temptation, flattery, and noise, he kept a journal, not for status, but for self-correction, not for the world, but for his soul. And you? You don't need to move mountains. You just need to move differently. To stop asking for permission, to stop explaining yourself, to stop announcing your next move, and just move. When you get up before the sun, when you train even when no one's watching, when you say no to indulgence for the 100th time, when you protect your time like a man who knows it won't last, that's when the war is won, not with noise, but with discipline, not with aggression, but with intention. You don't destroy the weak version of you by fighting him. You destroy him by replacing him, moment by moment, habit by habit, choice by choice, until the man you used to be can't survive in the life you've built anymore. When Marcus Aurelius died in 180 AD, he didn't leave behind a massive fortune or a dynasty remembered for glory. He left behind something quieter, but infinitely more powerful. Pages. A collection of thoughts, written not for applause, not for legacy, but for clarity, for himself, and accidentally, for you. The Meditations was never meant to be read by others. It was a mirror for a man constantly checking his ego, confronting his weaknesses, and anchoring himself to virtue. He ruled Rome, but he couldn't rule death. He couldn't stop betrayal or illness or the collapse of the empire's ideals, but he ruled himself, and that was enough. The lesson? You don't need a throne to live like a king, because kingship is not in the crown, it's in the conduct. Every time you delay gratification, every time you speak with purpose, every time you choose peace over pettiness, you rise above your lesser instincts and inch closer to the kind of man whose name doesn't need to be remembered, because his life was the message. So ask yourself, if someone read your life the way we read Marcus's words, what would they learn? Would they see a man trying to be liked, or a man committed to becoming real? Would they see a man constantly distracted, or a man at peace with the silence? Would they see the weak version of you, still fighting for control, or the forged version, who has nothing left to prove? And if you're still watching this, there's something in you that knows. You weren't made for mediocrity. You weren't made to be lukewarm. You weren't made to live half asleep. You were made to master yourself. One action at a time, one thought at a time, one battle in the mind, at a time. Before we move into our final acts, let me remind you, if this has lit something in you, if it's reminded you of who you can become, hit subscribe. This channel is your call to discipline, to clarity, to power, and I don't want you to miss what's coming next. Let's return to that moment, that first image of you, not the strong version, but the uncomfortable one, the one still ruled by impulse, the one who scrolls too much, gives too much, tries too hard to be liked, feels too little control over life, and way too much fear of silence, the you that knows better, but rarely does better. Now look again. Do you still see him? Or do you see someone who's begun to remember? Someone who's tired of excuses, tired of letting pain write the script, tired of waiting for permission to change, because this is where things begin to shift, not in grand revolutions, but in quiet rebellion against the weak habits, the soft choices, the lies we've told ourselves for too long. You think Marcus Aurelius became who he was by accident? No. He chose discomfort. He chose reflection. He chose to destroy the version of himself that the world wanted, so he could become who he was meant to be. And that's what you're doing too. Every time you show up for yourself, every time you reject the dopamine trap, every time you read, think, write, reflect, you are erasing the version of you that never stood a chance. You are making space for someone stronger, someone quieter, someone who doesn't chase, because he draws things to him through who he is, not what he performs. There is no fast route to becoming this kind of man, but there is a straight one: self-respect, discipline, stillness, virtue. And now, the mirror is different, isn't it? You're no longer staring at what you hate. You're staring at who you're building, piece by piece, decision by decision. You've stared at yourself in the mirror. You've felt the heat of hard truths, and you've seen what must die if the real you is to live. Now, ask yourself this: what are you truly afraid of losing? The comfort that kept you weak? The patterns that buried your potential? The shallow approval of people you don't respect? That version of you, the one built on escape, excuses, and empty habits, has had its time, but that time is over. Today, you step into your power, not with noise, not with performance, but with quiet fire, the kind that shapes mountains and men. You choose strength because softness no longer serves you. You choose clarity because confusion has drained you. You choose stillness because the noise has lied long enough. You choose to become unshakable because the world needs fewer men chasing. Here's your vow: to never go back to sleep, to never negotiate with mediocrity, to never dim your light just to blend in, to never abandon your mind just to feel accepted. And if this journey stirred something in you, if you felt called out, lifted up, or realigned, then make sure you subscribe, because this is just the beginning, and every week, we build deeper, not just with quotes, but with fire, with structure, with the ancient truths that never stopped working. Marcus isn't watching you, but your future self is, and he's either proud or disappointed. The weak version of you is gone, burned at the altar of self-respect, and what remains is power, purpose, and peace. Let it guide you.